Here is a basic fact. The greatest problem, the greatest number of Americans right now, is not technically contracting this virus. It's losing your job because of the pandemic, a problem that now has hit a staggering 26 million people, from small businesses to the gig economy to also, of course, major corporations and institutions. So let's start like this. Do you remember where you were on March 11th? That was one day that brought home how fast things were suddenly changing. Several sports leagues shutting down their seasons, tens of thousands of related jobs in peril. My next guest was at his job, Dallas Mavericks owner Mark Cuban. He was actually with his team in the very middle of a game when the urgent news came in. The NBA was suspending the whole season. In fact, we're going to show you. Here was Cuban taking in the sudden news like everybody else. This is shot right from when it happened in real time.
This is crazy. This can't be true. I mean, it's not within the realm of possibilities. It's just, it seemed more like out of a movie than reality. It's really not about basketball or money. You think about your family, you know, you want to really make sure you're doing this the right way. What about all the people who work here on an hourly basis? You know, we'll put together a program for them.
There are many ways to measure all the responses to a crisis as it hit all these different countries and institutions and economies. We've covered this. You know, the WHO made some mistakes, but it was ahead of many countries, including the U.S., where the Trump administration lagged behind what the WHO was saying medically. Sports leagues like the NBA and NHL, they didn't have private intelligence briefings like the president to shape their decisions. But we should note they still came out more decisively in shutting down and protecting many impacted people than Donald Trump. Now consider what Donald Trump said the very same day the NBA shut down, as well as throughout the rest of that week.
The vast majority of Americans, the risk is very, very low. Other countries that are smaller countries have many, many deaths. 32 is a lot. 32 is too many. But when you look at the kind of numbers that you're seeing coming out of other countries, it's pretty amazing when you think of it. But we've done a great job because we acted quickly, we acted early. And there's nothing we could have done that was better than closing our borders to highly infected areas.
Joining me now is entrepreneur and investor Mark Cuban. He also owns the Dallas Mavericks and is one of the main investors on that reality show you've probably seen, Shark Tank. Thanks for joining me, Mark.
Thanks for having me on.
Let's start with what we just showed. How do you rate the president's handling of this virus in comparison to, say, the NBA and those kind of institutions and overall?
You know what? I'm not going to second guess. What's done is done. What I care about is what's happening next. What I want to know about is where's testing going to come from? How are we going to get it implemented? How are we going to do tracking and tracing? Are we going to have a federal jobs program that employs millions of people that we need right now to do that tracking and tracing? You know, he was dealing with imperfect information. We know who he is. I didn't expect a whole lot. But what are we doing next? That's what I care about.
Well, part of what we're doing next, of course, will inform what happens on the economy. Your view of the economy right now, and how do you get it moving again within these restrictions?
I think we should learn from what's worked. I mean, if you look at what we've done for restaurants in particular, we've allowed pickup and delivery, and we haven't had any real problems. And I actually talked to some restaurants, and I know a lot of smaller ones aren't doing well, but some pickup and delivery, some restaurants have done really well with pickup and delivery. Why not extend that to any company in the United States? So any company that wants to offer pickup and delivery exclusively, open up right now. But when we get to opening up a retail location, that's a completely different matter. And I'll tell you why. Because we don't have protocols in place to guide those small or medium or large size retail businesses to tell them what to do to deal with sanitation. And I'll give you a simple example, right? It's a clothing store, and Ari walks in and he wants to try on a T-shirt, tries it on, puts it back, decides he doesn't want to buy it. What do you do with that T-shirt? You can't just put it there for the next person to buy. Somebody goes into a restaurant, has their mask, sneezes. What are you going to do?
Does the example change if I want to try on a pair of Yeezys?
He's a billionaire. He can let you just keep them, right? He's rich now.
He is. Hey, you know, the Forbes says, I know you keep track of this stuff. Forbes says Kanye is now a billionaire. Do you think he has more money than you, since you brought it up?
You know what? I hope for his sake he does.
Well, let's get into this practical part, because we prepared this to talk to you about exactly what you're saying. You're a practical business person. Sometimes we got someone who claims he was in business in the White House. Of course,
Right.
a lot of what he was in was entertainment. And then we have government, which I will admit, Congress is full of lawyers. They know certain things like laws. But you're talking about the reopening. Here's what the federal guidelines now say about phase one reopening. Large venues like the sit-down movie theaters, sporting venues, places of worship have strict physical distancing protocols. As you know, that's basically a prevention. You can't do a sports venue like that. Gyms can open if they have strict physical distancing and sanitation. You just mentioned that. Bars must remain closed. With your entrepreneurial experience, does that strike you as right for business, or do you think there's a way to continue to innovate following CDC guidelines?
I think it's really limited and it's almost useless, right? I mean, look, again, what does a small restaurant need to know in order to keep their patrons safe? What do the employees need to know so that when they go to work, they feel safe? What the CDC has presented is common sense things that we've been seeing, but it doesn't really protect employees or customers at all. I think it needs to go much further. Then we can start to talk about opening up the retail side of it. But right now, we're woefully underprepared. And, you know, we need, whether it's state or federal, there needs to be very specific protocols in place to build confidence and protect employees and customers.
Well, you mentioned state or federal. A lot of this obviously is the state level. That's why the president running his mouth about what he will allow or not allow governors to do is irrelevant. It literally has no legal significance because governors make their own call. To that end, where you do business in Texas, I want to show Texas Governor Abbott how he's been discussing handling it in your state. Take a look.
All retail stores, restaurants, movie theaters, and malls can reopen May the 1st. I am limiting occupancy to no more than 25%. The extent to which this order opens up businesses in Texas supersedes all local orders.
Do you disagree with that approach?
It's kind of showmanship. I mean, the reality is a retail store trying to open up, or any large venue trying to open, whether it's a mall, theater, whatever it may be, when you have to restrict to 25%, it's going to cost you more to open up than anything you'd actually bring in revenue. Now, the pickup and delivery, they did extend to any company, which I liked, as I said earlier. But it's just, like I said, it's a marketing, it's gamemanship. You know, maybe a couple businesses can open up. But Ari, what we're really missing is, because demand is going to be so much less than it was before, just trying to follow some of these guidelines, these small businesses are going to lose more money by opening up for retail. And nobody is giving them any help. Nobody's giving them any guidance. You know, there should be support there. And again, nobody's standing up for the employees. What are the employees going to do if they feel the pressure to come to work, but they don't feel it's safe? Who do they turn to? Who do they talk to? And again, that's why I keep on harping on very specific protocols to protect everybody.
Yeah, that makes sense. And you mentioned the help. I mean, we have been reporting on these terrible stories about both the problems at state and federal level of getting even basic unemployment help, even getting through with the systems, getting the small business loans. A lot of people pointing out we shouldn't even call them small business loans when you look at some of who was able to come in there. Sharks in the bad sense of the word.
Yeah.
Get it?
Yeah, no
Get what I'm
question.
saying there? So let me show you. You got it. Yeah, I slow down the bad jokes. It's just something I do. But let me show you in all seriousness. This includes, you know, some of your contemporaries. They offer these small business loans, and some companies, you know where I'm going with this, they use a kind of a loophole to say that because technically the Lakers have some lower number, they got their lawyers to put it in. Now, then they backed off it with bad press. Potbelly, Shake Shack, you've heard the stories. Number one, do you think the people involved in those organizations were wrong to try to get that money, even if, and I'll be fair and accurate about it, even if technically it was legal?
You know, initially, no, I would say they weren't wrong, because I think the expectation was there was enough money for everybody. But the minute you find out that there were a lot of small businesses that weren't able to get funding, if you didn't return the money, then you're a bad actor, right? And I know the Lakers did return the funding. I think some of the other companies that were listed returned it as well. And now they excluded those companies in the second tranche, which is the right thing to do. But the real problem, Ari, is that the smallest companies didn't have an equal shot, because the banks, particularly the bigger banks controlling most of the applications, had all the control over who got the money and who didn't. My personal preference is should have gone to a lottery.
You know, lottery. You know so much about this. How do you fix that? You're in this crisis, so you're not going to rewire the entire underlying banking financial system. But a lot of Americans are feeling like it's 2008 Redux, where the banks are always being told, oh, well, the banks, they're critical, they're mission critical, and we have to put up with it. So you were just mentioning a lottery. How exactly, practically, would you want to fix this?
But first, you do some math, right? How many small businesses are there? The decline in their business, that's the total you're going to need, right? So you start there. But if you can't get that amount appropriated, in terms of a lottery, when any business applies to any bank, once they take and approve the application, they send it to the government, the SBA or the Treasury. That Treasury says we're going to take the first 50,000 companies and we're going to choose them randomly. That way, everybody's got an equal chance. Once we choose the 50,000, we'll see what the total amount is. Then we'll do it again until the money's gone. Now, realize that we've done this twice now. We're going to have to do it many more times, because this is not enough. The catch-22 for a lot of these small companies is that they are going to be able to pay their employees for 8 weeks, but chances are they're not going to be able to get open for 8 weeks in a lot of jurisdictions, right? And so now they're paying their employees to do nothing. Their employees, where they can get unemployment insurance, are actually getting paid more in unemployment, so they can't get them to come back a lot. So they're in this catch-22. We've got to sit down and have somebody truly understand small businesses, who truly understands the predicament the small businesses and their employees are in, and just look at the actual numbers. Having to go through banks when you were in a rush to get money in people's hands, I understand why they did that. But now that we've been through this twice, let's optimize it and get it right.
Really, really important point. I want to show a little Joe Biden before I let you go real quick. We talked about different leaders. We talked about the Texas governor. Here's how Joe Biden's been talking about the pandemic.
This new enemy may be unseen, but we have the tools, the expertise, and most importantly, the spirit to defeat it. But we need to move, and we need to move fast.
The vice president, they're campaigning from home. What do you think of how he's doing? Will he get your vote in November?
You know, depends on who the final two candidates are. I'm obviously not a fan of the president's at all, so right now I'd say yes. But at the same time, we need leadership, and we're not getting it anywhere. I think, Vice President Biden has been too silent. He's been too quiet. He's not really offering solutions in a way that builds confidence. And so, look, I know this is a tough time. He doesn't want to be seen as taking advantage of a tragedy like this. But this is where we need leadership. And I say it all the time. You don't have to be the leader to be a leader. And somebody needs to stand up and put their voice forward a lot louder and a lot more strongly than what we've been seeing, speaking up for the workers, speaking up for small businesses. This has got to be a bottom-up recovery. This has got to be a consumer-driven recovery. We got to get out of the top-down approach, and I haven't heard anything approaching anything like that from any candidate.
Really interesting getting you to cover a lot of ground. I'm out of time. This was your first appearance on The Beat, Mark Cuban. I hope you come back.
Yep. Yes, sir.
Thank
and
you.
I'll have some hip-hop references for you next time.
Mark, just be yourself. That's the success secret.
I'm not even going to start rapping. I'm not even going to go into any of that, right?
Well, you seem like you're doing all right. Mark, I do appreciate it. Thank you. Hey, I'm Ari Melber from MSNBC. You can see more of our videos right here, or better yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel below. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and we appreciate that.